Und mir tun auch diese Menschen, also sage ich mal, leid, die da, sagen wir so, zögern. Auf der anderen Seite müssen wir auch vermitteln, was ja auch so ist, die Impfungen sind halt mehr oder weniger nebenwirkungsfrei. Das muss immer wieder gesagt werden. Das ist, also, das sind die Leute, die sich jetzt nicht impfen lassen wollen, das sind ja auch zum Teil Opfer der schäbigen Desinformation in den sozialen Medien gewesen und der politischen Kräfte, die das ausgenutzt haben. Das ist ja, wir müssen die Menschen auch abholen und daran arbeiten wir. Wir kämpfen wirklich um jede einzelne Pflegekraft, um jede einzelne.
Willst du mich eigentlich verarschen, verdammte Scheiße?
Warum fehlen Ihnen die Daten? Also die EMA hat ja zugelassen, es gab ja Studien und in den USA wird jetzt schon seit Ende Oktober gab es da schon die Zulassung, sind inzwischen über 5 Millionen Kinder geimpft, über 1 Million, wenn ich das richtig im Kopf habe, die Zahlen auch schon mit einer Zweitimpfung. Das sind ja unheimlich viele Daten eigentlich, die Sie haben. Haben Sie da Daten über Schäden, über schwere Komplikationen, die Sie zögern lassen?
Ja, arm wird ärmer, reich wird reicher, der Chef verdient das Fünffache.
Dr. Fauci, the government recommends everybody take a booster over age 5. Are you aware of any studies that show reduction in hospitalization or death for children who take a booster?
Right now, there's not enough data that has been accumulated, Senator Paul, to indicate that that's the case. I believe that the recommendation that was made was based on the assumption that if you look at the morbidity and mortality of children within each of the age groups, 0 to 5, 5 to 11.
Right. So there are no studies, and Americans should all know this. There are no studies on children showing a reduction in hospitalization or death with taking a booster. The only studies that were permitted, the only studies that were presented were antibody studies. So they say if we give you a booster, you make antibodies. Now, a lot of scientists would question whether or not that's proof of efficacy of a vaccine.
Das sind ja unheimlich viele Daten eigentlich, die Sie haben. Haben Sie da Daten über Schäden, über schwere Komplikationen, die Sie zögern lassen?
On this channel just the other day, Tony Fauci, no less than Tony Fauci, admitted in public that actually we have no idea what effect the COVID vaccines might have on women's fertility, on their menstrual cycles. Wait a second! Remember when suggesting that could get you bounced off of Twitter and Facebook as a conspiracy theorist? Well, it turns out it's true. Here's Tony Fauci.
There's been a number of studies. New York Times just did one about menstruating cycles and how that is affected by vaccines.
Yeah, well, the menstrual thing is something that seems to be quite transient and temporary. That's the point. That's one of the points. We need to study it more.
Oh, we need to study it more. We need to study it more. It's just like human fertility, reproducing the species, the most important event in most people's lives. We need to study it more. Oh, but it's too late.
Das sind ja unheimlich viele Daten eigentlich, die Sie haben. Haben Sie da Daten über Schäden, über schwere Komplikationen, die Sie zögern lassen?
The only studies that were permitted, the only studies that were presented were antibody studies. So they say if we give you a booster, you make antibodies. Now, a lot of scientists would question whether or not that's proof of efficacy of a vaccine. If I give you 10, or if I give a patient 10 mRNA vaccines and they make protein each time, or they make antibody each time, is that proof that we should give 10 boosters, Dr. Fauci?
No, I think that is somewhat of an absurd exaggeration.
Well, that is the proof that you use. Your committees use that. That's the only proof you have to tell children to take a booster is that they make antibodies. So it's not an absurdity. You're already at like 5 boosters for people. You've had, 2 or 3 boosters. It's like, where is the proof?
Was die Impfungen in den Vereinigten Staaten angeht, so ist es richtig, da sind Impfungen durchgeführt worden und es sind auch allerdings nicht sehr viele Zweitimpfungen durchgeführt worden. Und wir hatten
aber 1 Million, stimmt das nicht?
Also
Zweitimpfung, das ist ja eine ganze Menge. Also das melden jedenfalls die amerikanischen Behörden und darauf berufen sich auch amerikanische und deutsche Virologen.
We just forced millions of women to take that drug. Sorry. So how did they release a vaccine and then make it mandatory when they didn't understand the long-term effects of the drug? That's a very good question. Here's Deborah Birx. She's the former White House COVID response director, again on Fox News.
I knew these vaccines were not going to protect against infection, and I think we overplayed the vaccines, and it made people then worry that it's not going to protect against severe disease and hospitalization. It will, but let's be very clear. 50% of the people who died from the Omicron surge were older, vaccinated.
What? Stop the quote. I knew these vaccines were not going to protect against infection. Really, Deborah Birx? But somehow you forgot to mention that as people were being fired from their jobs for not taking this on the premise that if they took it, they would never be infected? When do you get criminally charged? Soon, we hope. And then there's the effect of the COVID vaccines on the elderly, the population most at risk. According to The Lancet, no less than, vaccinated people around Joe Biden's age are 80% more likely to become sick after taking the COVID shot as compared to unvaccinated people. Wait, what? 80% more likely to become sick after taking the shot that was supposed to prevent them from getting sick? How is this not the banner headline? It's being ignored.
Auf der anderen Seite müssen wir auch vermitteln, was ja auch so ist, die Impfungen sind halt mehr oder weniger nebenwirkungsfrei. Das muss immer wieder gesagt werden.
Aber was wir ja wissen, ist, dass Covid auch bei Kindern Schäden hervorrufen kann und dass im Moment die das Virus regelrecht durchseucht. Finden Sie das richtig? Sind Sie für eine sogenannte natürliche Immunität, dass die Kinder nach Möglichkeit alle dieses Virus bekommen? Denn das wird ja mehr oder weniger passieren. Entweder Impfung oder Infektion.
Jetzt durchseuchen sich die kleinen Zwerge halt mit der Impfung. Alte, warum willst du unbedingt diese Impfung verzapfen?
Wenn man so flächendeckend eine Impfung auch von Staatswegen propagiert, dann wäre es einfach wünschenswert, dass man ein Register hat, weil ein Impfregister führt dazu, dass man frühzeitig bestimmte Signale bekommt, wo gegebenenfalls Auffälligkeiten, was Nebenwirkungen angeht, entstehen.
Einen Hinweis, warum häufig junge Menschen an schweren Impfnebenwirkungen leiden, könnte diese Studie aus dem Jahr 2020 zur Wirksamkeit des Impfstoffes von BioNTech geben. Demnach spricht vieles dafür, den Impfstoff nach Alter zu staffeln.
Das sind ja unheimlich viele Daten eigentlich, die Sie haben. Haben Sie da Daten über Schäden, über schwere Komplikationen, die Sie zögern lassen?
Well, as one scientist wrote in the Journal of Virology, quote, the study showed that immune function among vaccinated individuals 8 months after the administration of 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine was lower than that among the unvaccinated individuals. So it's not just that your natural antibodies were more powerful than the vaccine. We've known that for a long time, though they lied about it. Turns out the vaccine appears to depress your immune system. This has massive implications, not just for COVID. There are all kinds of horrible diseases you can get with a suppressed immune system.
Hört mal zu, ihr kleinen Hampelmänner. Was habt ihr uns da gespritzt? Wieso ist mein Immunsystem jetzt schlechter? Wann nimmt Karl Lauterbach dazu Stellung?
The Journal of Food and Chemical Toxicology found the same thing. Quote, vaccination induces a profound impairment in type 1 interferon signaling, which has diverse adverse consequences to human health. What the hell? And yet these people are on TV blithely admitting, oh, well, we should do more study on that, after we forced it on the entire American population, on billions of people globally. And this might explain how Joe Biden got COVID after getting every available shot and telling us just a year ago that vaccines conferred total immunity.
The various shots that people are getting now cover that. You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Hey folks, guess you heard this morning I tested positive for COVID, but I've been double vaccinated, double boosted.
So one of the responses to this is great sadness, of course, because even people who didn't vote for Joe Biden believed his administration when they said this, because they were acting in the name of science. People were afraid of COVID, in some cases with great justification. Some people were at risk of dying from COVID. And they reached out and accepted this drug on the promise, told to them repeatedly that it would save them. And now Deborah Birx said, so I knew it didn't really work.
Hat's der Lappen die ganze Welt verarscht? Krass, vor einem Jahr war ich Aluhutträger. Egal, wir bleiben wachsam, folgt uns weiterhin, Hasta luego.